I gotta say that I knew you could do it. They gave lots of instructions about we're gonna start promptly at 12:30, and so if you wanna eat, get your lunch, and look at the room. You guys are marvelous. Hello, everyone. How you doing? Excellent. We are at our closure. How you feeling about this? Good? I don't know about you, but it has been a whirlwind for me. 4 days just blew by. A lot of good memories, a lot of good work, a lot of good networking. I just love what we do. We've had 3 powerful plenaries leading up to this point, and I know you are all looking forward to this one as well. My name is Danae Davis. I am the Executive Director of Milwaukee Succeeds, and I'm a member of the Strive Together Board. So I want you to, I don't even need to tell you this, settle in. You're going to love the next 70 minutes that we're about to experience, especially the keynote, if you will, that our Dr. John, I don't know why I'm so nervous. Anyway, let's try it again. Dr. Joe Biden, who will be our closing speaker, and I know you feel the same way I do. She is an amazing leader, so I'm looking forward to that. But first, it's time to honor 2 of our own champions and passionate leaders who have worked above and beyond to support every child every day. It's time to announce the winners of the 6th Bill Hemings Cradle-to-Career Champion Award. This award is named after one of the earliest and staunchest champions of our work. A passionate advocate for kids, Bill brought together partners with a common goal and a common vision for helping every child in his community succeed through Eastside Pathways. Eastside Pathways was one of the first members of the Cradle-to-Career Network, and Bill was a consistent voice, thoughtful contributor, and critical friend from the beginning. We created this award in 2013 to honor the memory and legacy of Bill, one of the earliest advocates and friends to this work. This year, we had more nominees than ever before. Thank you to the Member Advisory Council for reviewing all of the nominations, and thanks to all of you who took the time to nominate someone. While having so many nominees made this a very difficult decision, I am elated by the number of leaders tirelessly working to solve the problems of students and families every day. Having so many great change agents remind us that we must indeed go together if we hope to go far. Say that with me. We must go together in order to go far. In that spirit, we're doing something we've never done before, naming 2 Cradle-to-Career Champion Award winners. Our first award winner is Lisa Morrison Butler of Chicago. Lisa embodies the exceptional leadership vision and dedication of a Cradle-to-Career champion. Lisa is the co-chair of Thrive Chicago's Leadership Council and commissioner of the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services, one of the country's largest human service agencies. Throughout her career, Lisa has been devoted to getting better results for kids and closing gaps. At City Year Chicago, where she was executive director, she helped students reach their full potential and graduate high school. She expanded the Youth Service Corps from 60 to more than 200 members served annually. She also increased by tenfold the number of at-risk Chicago Public School students served. Lisa was one of the first city leaders to support Opportunity Youth and served as chair of Thrive Chicago's Opportunity Youth Working Group. In her current role for the City of Chicago, Lisa is responsible for improving the lives of more than 300,000 people in Chicago every year through a number of services and resources, including early learning opportunities, summer employment, and after-school programs, and transitional housing for homeless families and individuals. Unfortunately, Lisa could not join us in person and desperately wishes she could be here. She's stuck in Chicago confirming her organization's budget. And I know we're way more fun than that, but we also know how important it is to be personally present to get your budget across the finish line. We will make sure this award gets to Lisa in Chicago. But now let's hear a few words from Lisa herself via her video.
Hello, my name is Lisa Morrison Butler, and it is my honor and privilege to lead the team at the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services. Chicago has a great tradition of innovation, thinking big, and taking chances. At any given moment, there are multiple pilots on the ground at the same time here. We desperately want to move the needle on important issues that affect our communities. But the city is huge, and unfortunately, our tradition, as committed as we are to doing better, means that we often do better in silos. The Bill Hemings Cradle-to-Career Award is incredibly significant because it recognizes the effort we are making in Chicago to get out of those silos, to move away from the idea that we need to act alone, to be able to own an initiative, or to get credit for it as an individual entity. This new idea that we are all on the hook for what we do collectively, this is scary and messy and really, really hard. So thank you. Honoring our steps to date in this way will, I hope, encourage us to keep at this. We have so much work to do in Chicago that it feels a little strange to be honored at this point. But if you think of this as not just the Cradle-to-Career Award, but also as the Don't Give Up Just Because You're a Huge City and This Is Really Hard award, then we are thrilled and humbled to accept. Thank you so very much.
Now we know why Thrive Chicago is so very proud to have her among their leaders, and we are very honored that she is one of our awardees this year. Our second award winner received 2 separate nominations. Given my experiences with her, I am not surprised. I am pleased to announce our second winner, Becky Hoffman, CEO of the Youth Initiatives of Adams County in Adams County, Colorado. So for those of you that have had the honor of getting to know Becky or working with her, you know this woman is fierce. Understatement underscored. She is a force of nature. When she's committed to something, nothing will stand in her way. Becky believes that the work she does with ACYI is the hardest work she'll ever love, and no one works harder than Becky. Her relentless enthusiasm, combined with her willingness to be vulnerable and courageous, exemplifies the values that Bill embodied. She personifies courage, tenacity, and a contagious urgency to do better for kids and families in Adams County. In July, I was able to visit with Becky and the team of ACYI, and I could not have been more impressed and proud of what I experienced under Becky's leadership. Becky has brought a level of commitment that is unparalleled. This commitment extends to using the theory of action, living and breathing continuous improvement, serving as a critical friend of Strive Together, and uniting her team and community partners around innovative approaches that truly get results. This commitment is making a difference locally and standing out nationally. Under her leadership, the ACYI team has implemented institutes to support partners around leadership, continuous improvement, and equity. If you haven't heard about these yet, make sure you ask her about them, and you will be floored. You also heard about the amazing pilot effort undertaken in Adams County with Girls Affect TEGA program. This wouldn't have been possible without Becky's drive to ensure youth voice is the cornerstone and hallmark of that Becky brings to this work. She is quick with a laugh and maybe more than one sarcastic remark. She couples fun and levity with the seriousness of needing to get better and more equitable results for every child. I am thrilled to call Becky my colleague and friend in the struggle. Please welcome our friend, Becky Hoffman, as she gets this very well-deserved award.
Thank you, Danae. Thank you very much, Danae, for the amazing remarks. And to the Strive Together Board of Directors, Jennifer, Bridget, the best navigator, and the entire Strive Together team, thank you. And I'm glad that Lisa got to go first, because this is the award for Don't Give Up award. And I felt really silly about it, to be honest. So I really just want to say, on behalf of our team, ACY team, would you please stand up? And the overall ACY partnership and the 100,000 students that we get the honor of serving in Adams County, Colorado, thank you. We are truly honored and humbled. When the Strive Together team notified us about this, I really wanted to dig in and learn a little bit more about who exactly Bill was. This is my 8th convening, and I've seen a lot of awardees up here, and it was well-deserved, but I really didn't understand who Bill was. So I learned he was a Microsoft executive, who was a founding board member of Eastside Pathways here and an executive director. According to the Seattle Times, he saw early on that business skills could and needed to be applied to the nonprofit and government world. So when I asked our friends in Portland and our friends here in Seattle who personally knew Bill, they said he was a persistent dog. He was a bad A, double SS. But above all, his priority was his family and his community. When I reflect on Bill and this brand of leaders and this Strive Together network, I often have asked myself over the years, what keeps us up at night? What do we wake up thinking about, and how are we wired? So for me, like Lisa, this work is great, and it's big, and it's hard, and it's slow, and it's difficult, and it's exhilarating. It's also necessary. And ultimately, we can feel like we're living on a roller coaster. As our COO, Liz, says, supporting a Cradle-to-Career partnership is a ride of a lifetime. So I think Bill and the rest of us are wired to continually ask what is best for our family and what is best for our community, and is what we are doing actually working for kids. The Strive Together framework delivers the how, boiled down to together we can do more with an outcomes-driven framework. We talk about this every national convening, that it really is radical common sense. So when I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be an artist, especially after watching Flashdance with my leg warmers. I thought I wanted to be a dancer. So it turns out I'm not a typical artist at all. We are not typical artists. We are community artists. We get to weave the big visions of it has to get better for all of our kids. We get to weave the data and information with the strategies and interventions that work so that the needed systems change can truly be a reality. Sometimes we pull, sometimes we have to push. It doesn't work all the time. And the weaving is as much of an art as it is a science. So our community artist tools are bent to be silo and status quo busters, bridge builders, courageous conversation starters, truth tellers, paradigm shifters, equity auditors, authentic voice and community amplifiers. And we all share the same values: brave, bold, courageous, confident, focused, thoughtful, and fearless. So thank you, Bill. And to all of you, this persistent, fearless network of bad A double SS which I can't do that right now. Sorry, Tegas, I was trying to be good. But anyway, who continue to make this work our priority for our kids and our community. Let's keep going. Let's keep weaving.
So congratulations to Lisa and Becky on receiving the 2018 Cradle-to-Career Champion Award. Let's give them another round of applause. And now we're at that moment that we've all been waiting for, and that is our closing keynote by former Second Lady of the United States, Dr. Jill Biden. Yeah, we can do that. As Second Lady, Dr. Biden's efforts included highlighting the importance of community colleges to America's future. An educator for more than 3 decades, she continues to teach English at a community college in Northern Virginia, a position she held full-time throughout her time in the White House. On a personal note, like many of you, I was so moved and inspired by the authentically wonderful partnership of Dr. Joe Biden and First Lady Michelle Obama. Their deep and abiding commitment to women and men who serve in our military was such an inspiring example of women who lead. And so I want to personally thank you for that leadership. I'm excited to welcome Dr. Biden to the stage now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Danae, for that very warm welcome. You know, it's been really an honor to meet you, and you've set an incredible example for public service while building a trailblazing corporate career. So thank you for all that you do. And I have to say, it's so funny, you know, when you're invited to a speech, you get the bios. And there's Danae, all in her dark navy blue suit and looking all staid and straight-laced. And then I meet her and I think, wow, look at her. You know, I liked her just immediately. She's just that kind of a woman. So I'm really excited to be here today with all of you. And I also love seeing my friend Nancy Zimper, who's on your board of directors. So it was great to see her again. And I know that you've already heard from incredible women like Jennifer Blatz and Brittany Packnett and Danae, who are doing so much to make education more accessible and fair for students across our country. And I'm honored and invigorated to join this inspiring convening. In fact, being with you here today is a treat for me because I've been traveling quite a bit lately, working on the issues that I care deepest about. And for me, there's nothing like spending time with fellow educators. And during the Obama-Biden administration, one of my favorite events was when Joe and I would host a barbecue at our vice president's residence for the Teachers of the Year. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I really enjoy getting to know brilliant people from across sectors. But at the end of the day, it's educators like you that I really enjoy spending my time with. And we share a love for teaching and for students that's not really always easy to explain, is it? I mean, other people don't sort of get it. So whenever I get to be a part of an event like this, I truly feel like I'm home. A few years ago, a student of mine told me that she had been watching TV with her mother the night before, and she was surprised to see me standing next to Michelle Obama. So she turned to her mother and she said, "Mom, that's my English teacher." And her mother said, "That's not your teacher, that's the second lady." And she wasn't the only student who had no idea that I had a second job. So if you think about it, think back to when you were a freshman in college. Could you name the second lady? Yeah, I hear you. Well, can you name the one who's there now? Okay. So, made you think, didn't I? So, in our administration, I lived a sort of a double life. So, on some days, I would head to my office at the White House, a large, stately room. It was beautiful with a fireplace and filigree molding. And I would look past the beautiful marble columns to a view of the most powerful city in the world. And on other days, I would go to a very different office, a small cubicle in a room full of other small cubicles at Northern Virginia Community College, as Danae mentioned, and Nova, as we call it. And there I have a modest desk and no beautiful paintings or, historic artifacts. But, I have a lot of pictures of my grandkids, push pinned, those kind of felt walls that they have that like barely, you can almost push them over. So for 8 years, my life was divided between Second Lady and Dr. B. It was between state receptions and midterm papers, dinner with the royal family, and study sessions with single moms, just hoping to find a better job. Rushing from a 7 a.m. interview with the Today Show to a 7:30 a.m. essay review with a student. And, there were times when we were flying home from an event when I would wedge myself under that tiny nook beneath the vice presidential seal on Air Force Two, and I could grade papers there on the floor. And boy, has that changed as I had to wait in the airport for like 2 hours to get onto my flight. They said the plane was damaged from hail. Who ever heard of that? So in a way, living in these two vastly different worlds kept me grounded. I had the chance to see what education looked like from policymakers and political leaders. I saw the federal strategy and how education played a role in our economy and in our global relationships. But, my students never let me lose sight of the everyday struggles of people who were barely getting by. And sometimes it was like seeing a child grow up all at once. I had the chance to work with organizations focused on the first 5 years, on middle school reading proficiencies, on college prep in low-income high schools. And then in my class, I saw how each of those things manifested itself in the challenges that my students faced. And while there was so much good work being done in individual areas, I saw that there needed to be a stronger focus on the entire path. Each piece of an education puzzle, from talking to babies so that they develop language skills, all the way to making sure that college students have the support that they need to actually graduate with a degree. That's crucial. But we also need to see how each step along the way intersects with each other. And that's exactly what Strive Together does. So I want to begin by saying how grateful I am personally and on behalf of the more than 10 million students you impact for the work Strive Together is doing to make sure that those pieces are a part of a lifetime journey from cradle to career. Now, I've been a teacher for more than 30 years now, and I continue to teach a full course load at NOVA. Actually, I just gave midterm exams, so I will be grading 80 midterm essays on the way home today. And I learned a great deal from the policy experts in the White House, but I'm not one myself. You've already heard from some pretty incredible experts, and I suspect that many of you could give my legislative staff a few pointers. So I don't really want to talk to you today about policy solutions or political realities. Instead, I'd like to talk to you about my journey, my teaching journey, and what I've learned along the way. I'd like to talk about how we can reconnect education to our most important values and how we as a nation can find the courage and the character to meet the needs of our children. And yes, those needs are great. One of my first teaching jobs was as a reading specialist in the early 1980s. And decades after Brown versus Board of Education, Delaware had struggled to desegregate its schools, and Wilmington students had sued for integration and won. As a result, a new class of students came to my high school where I was teaching, and from schools that had been denied so many resources, and many were drastically behind in basic skills like reading. And it was my job as a reading specialist to catch them up. They worked incredibly hard, but they had enormous obstacles to overcome. I mean, when they came to my classroom, now these were high school students, and they were reading on 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade reading levels. And, you know, we've come a long way from that time of state-sanctioned segregation, which no longer keeps students from getting the education they've deserved. But for all the progress that we've made, we know that poverty and zip code often play the same role. Black, Latino, Native American, and rural students still see huge obstacles in their educational path. Teachers and schools today face a host of challenges. Resources that are stretched too thin, the threat of violence in your classroom and in mine, parents working multiple jobs and with little time to help out their kids, and students wondering whether they're going to go to bed at night hungry. Our ability to teach, to run a school, to create learning roadmaps is deeply connected to the health of the community around us. And we know that there are places in this country, from the hills of Appalachia to the reservations of North Dakota, to the Mississippi Delta, to schools in every major city, where the promise of public education is falling short. But Helen Keller once wrote, "Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope." And I think we have a lot to be optimistic about in America, because while we struggle about national questions about access and equality, I have seen something incredible happening in small towns and big cities over these last few years. I've seen classrooms being transformed, not by a national revolution, but by individual teachers and schools, by cities coming together to rethink what their students need. Just like the woman from Chicago, by organizations bringing best practices to schools across the country. We are at a pivotal moment in teaching, and I believe that the future of education is beginning today, and that change is being led by organizations like Strive Together. So with that in mind, I want to ask each of you a question. Why are you here? I don't mean here, in this room at this speech, but why are you a part of Strive Together? Why do you support their work? Why are you a teacher or a school administrator or a community organizer dedicated to improving education? If I had to take a guess, I would say it's not for the enormous paycheck. Everyone who is here today has a reason. A teacher who pushed you to dream that you could make a difference. A child who inspired you to make the world work a little bit better for her. A time when you realized no one else was going to do the hard work of changing things if you didn't answer the call. We all have a reason. Mine is my grandmother. She taught in an old-fashioned one-room schoolhouse crammed with 3 grades of students. And some days she would take me with her. And when I was lucky, I got to ring the brass bell that called her students to class. I mean, it was just incredible to see. She was a really good teacher, and she loved it. And her students could tell that. She didn't just teach letters and arithmetic, as they called it back then. She opened up worlds for the kids that she taught. When she read to us from Charlotte's Web, Harold and the Purple Crayon, and my favorite, Mary Poppins, she was spellbinding. And every child who passed through the walls of her little classroom became enchanted, including me. I wanted to do that. I wanted to help kids see the world in a different way. I wanted to show them how books about strangers in far-off places could teach them about themselves. I wanted to help them find their own voices through writing. I thought if I could do what she did, if I could just set one student on a better path, that would be really special. I grew up the oldest of 5 girls outside of Philly. And as a teenager, I spent my summers watching the Phillies on our black and white Philco TV and waitressing at the Jersey Shore to save money for college. From a young age, I knew that I wanted 2 things: a strong, loving marriage like my parents, full of laughter, and I wanted a career. So at the University of Delaware, I decided to become a teacher myself. But my path turned out to be just a bit meandering. One day, when I was a senior, I was asked out on a date out of the blue. It was the 70s. I can't see the audience that well, so I can't see how many of you will relate to this. But it was, if you remember, it was Vietnam, love beads, equal rights. I wore my hair down, here to the middle of my waist, and so did most of the men I dated. So, as you can guess, when a handsome, clean-cut young senator showed up at my door, I took one look at his perfect suit and his leather loafers, and I thought, well, it's only one date. Okay, so that date turned into one date turned into a marriage proposal. And if I'm being truthful, it was really 5 proposals. But I was only 23 years old, and this was not part of my plan. Eventually, I realized that, I was no match for his charm, and I said yes. It might sound strange, but since Joe commuted from Delaware to DC every single day on the train, politics was just one part of the equation. He had a job to do, and so did I. Actually, I had a few. I was a full-time teacher. I was raising our 3 kids and pursuing my education as well. For 15 years, I worked full-time and I studied at night, 1 or 2 classes a semester, always the oldest student there. But in the end, I completed 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. Thank you. Although I started working with high schoolers, I eventually fell in love with the community college. I taught for 15 years at Delaware Technical and Community College, and then I went to Nova. And through the Biden Foundation, I'm continuing the work that I started as Second Lady, advocating for community colleges. As honorary chair of the College Promise campaign, I'm working to help cities and states across the country create free community college programs for hardworking students. Every day I get to do this work, I'm so grateful that I had chosen to follow in my grandmother's footsteps, because every day I see how powerful education can be. I teach veterans seeking to translate their hard-earned skills to the civilian workforce. I teach single moms hoping to make a better life for themselves and their families. I teach refugees looking to find community in a place they thought might never feel like home. Over and over again, I've seen lives changed, not just with better jobs or career opportunities, though that's true too, but in ways that can't be quantified in studies or white papers. Since a lot of my students are working parents, and even caring for their own parents as well, they don't often have a ton of support to get it all done. They feel like they need to put everyone else's needs before their own, and that's especially true of women. So, and I see a couple of you out there shaking your heads. So I started a mentoring group for women at Nova, initially for women over 30 who were returning to school. But then younger women were coming up to me and saying, you know, Dr. B, we want to be part of this. We need mentoring too. So this year we recruited more mentors and removed the age restriction. In our group, the students meet not just to talk about academia, but to share and encourage each other through the challenges they face in every area of their lives. They make friends, they give advice and gain confidence, and they begin to see the possibilities that they didn't see before. A few years ago, one of the women in our group was having a really hard time, and she was really struggling. And we found out that she was in an abusive marriage. And although she managed to get away from her husband, she and her 2 children were forced to live in a car and then in a domestic violence shelter. And she was haunted by her trauma, and she wasn't able to concentrate on her studies. So we connected her with some counseling and some other resources. I started tutoring her and helped her develop her writing, and she became more engaged, and she began to excel in her work. Feeling part of that community, connected and supported, that's all it took. That's why we know that we must create a nurturing community in our classrooms. Thanks to that support and to a pretty killer essay she submitted, she was accepted by George Mason University. And today she's graduated and is working as an accountant. Her life has turned around, and her kids have a much brighter future ahead of them. It wasn't enough to just escape the danger of her marriage. She needed help to get herself back on track. And because we were able to listen, to make space for her fears and failures, to give her that extra lift up, she was able to break that cycle of abuse and poverty and insecurity. Education is possibility in action. Whether we're talking about adults who are going back to school or children just starting out. This is one audience where I don't need to spout off stats about the importance of education. You all know its impact. It's the key to better jobs, better health outcomes, and lower rates of unemployment. But it's not just about improving individual lives. It's critical to our economy. Right now, we are facing an unprecedented shift in the type of workforce we need. And if we can't improve the path that takes students from pre-K to careers, we're not going to be able to remain competitive in a 21st century global economy. That's why what all of you are doing here is so important. That's why we've got to get this right. And I'm optimistic. I don't know about all of you, but when I turn on the news these days, it seems like there's no common ground left in this country, doesn't it? Pundits and talking heads would have us believe that the divide between the left and the right, or the rich and the poor, is just too big to cross. And we are wrestling with big issues in education, from testing to teacher pay. But when I talk to my students, when I travel, when I visit schools and organizations all over this country, I don't see division. I see energy and collaboration and innovation. One of the things I love most about educators is that they are some of the most resourceful people I know. They're like an army of MacGyvers. Give you a few paper clips, some construction paper, and a stick of gum, and you'll come back to a beautiful themed classroom before you know it. So, of course, technology is completely changing what schools can do. As Danae mentioned, the Bidens are a military family. So supporting spouses and kids of our armed forces is something I'm really passionate about. And one of the most significant problems is that it can be really challenging for children when a parent has been deployed, or when kids move around and change schools so often. But a few years ago, I met a woman, a teacher, who was trying to overcome this challenge with a simple cardboard box and a virtual reality app. The military kids she taught began taking her other students on virtual tours of places that they lived while they were in the service, like Germany and Japan and Guam. Suddenly, the challenge of multiple deployments became something special to her military-connected and civilian students alike. And it's not just new technologies. Communities across the country are rethinking what a school, the definition of a school, should actually be. I recently visited a school, an elementary school in Portland, that had partnered with a health system and other organizations to create a new entity altogether. Classrooms are staffed with teachers who are trained to deal specifically with children who have experienced a trauma. There's a clinic that provides free medical care and mental health support, which is so, so important. There's a shower and a washer and a dryer for students and parents. There's even a store where kids can go in any time of the day and grab food for free. And working with College Promise, I've had the chance to see communities design programs that not only help high schoolers afford college, but also provide advisors and extended mentoring help to make sure that students can actually get their degrees and find the jobs they need. This is the future of education, seeing students as whole people with diverse and important needs. It's going beyond testing to understand the complicated nature of students' challenges, needs, and dreams. It's building up parents and neighborhoods rather than tearing down teachers. It's bringing together our best minds and our most innovative solutions to meet students where they are. And let me re-emphasize that this is not a partisan movement. For example, my vice chair on the College Program Promise campaign is the former Republican governor of Wyoming, Jim Geringer. Our diverse perspectives make us more effective. They help us think differently and come at problems from all different angles. Because a stronger workforce, we all want that. Better wages for middle-class families, we all want that. Better health outcomes, less crime, lower unemployment, we all want that. This isn't a partisan issue. It's an American issue. And America deserves the best educational opportunities in the world. That's why Strive Together work is so critical. It starts before school even begins. In Central Texas, Strive Together has created the E3 Alliance, which worked with early childhood experts and other partners to develop the state's first comprehensive multi-competency school readiness assessment called Ready, Set, K. You probably already know this. And with the data collected, this team is now focused on helping get more kids into free and, more importantly, effective preschool. In Ohio, where's that table? They must be somewhere here. Strive Together is working on another kind of readiness, preparing high school students for college through ACT test prep. A partnership in Akron discovered that local schools had particularly low rates of ACT math scores, and that was affecting their college success. Students with ACT score higher than 22 were 4 times more likely to complete their college studies than those who didn't. So the local partnership worked with the school and the teachers to design a better test prep program. After taking the course over several weeks, students at Akron Early College High School went from 53% to the benchmark score of 83%. And that's a huge jump. So that's a congratulations to those of you who are making that. That holistic approach, where we recognize that students need food and mental health as much as they need books, that's a vital part of Strive Together's 2023 goals. And in 30 states plus Washington, D.C., they're helping struggling kids in every grade level through innovative programs backed by rigorous data. Programs like this, like yours, have the power to change the lives of low-income students across our country. And in doing so, they can change everything. Because education isn't just about self-improvement or better jobs. Just as important as the practical argument, it's a civic argument. Education connects us. It connects us to our classmates, teaching us kindness and compassion for each other. It connects us to our community, instilling in the next generation the wisdom of those who came before us. And it connects us to ourselves, teaching us that we can do more, go further, grow into the people we want to become. James Baldwin once said, "To ask questions of the universe and then learn to live with these questions is the way he achieves his own identity." In other words, education doesn't just make us smarter, it makes us whole. In March, I went to Puerto Rico to see a school in a poor community of Punta Santiago. 6 months after Hurricane Maria ravaged the island, the effects of the storm were still ever present. The schoolyard of the school I visited remained piled with debris. Most of their buses were destroyed, as well as the parents' vehicles. So students as young as 5 years old had to walk miles to school every day. Their school day ended at 12:30 because without electricity, the school couldn't serve lunch. This was an American school, and the students there missed so much time in the classroom that they lost their entire academic year. And yet, amid the devastation, I saw hope growing like dandelions through the concrete. The children laughed as they practiced their lessons and learned grammar. With saintly patience, the teachers would refocus the kids' attention. And on top of those dark, shoulder-high, water-stained walls, the teachers had pasted cheery, colorful flowers. In the face of devastation, I saw the strength of the human spirit, the determination to create something beautiful for our children. The children there told me that after Maria, they worried a lot about their safety. Without streetlights, families feared violence in the dark streets. They worried that looters would ransack their homes and take what little they had left. For weeks, children hid inside their homes because their parents were afraid to let them go outside to play. Kids who had always felt safe running around their neighborhoods with friends were suddenly holed up alone in their homes. One little girl told me, "I miss seeing the stars." But violence wasn't what happened. Instead, the families in the communities joined together to protect one another, to provide each other with support. They picked up the debris. They helped rebuild the homes. They made sure that the playground at the school was clear so that the kids could go out and play at recess. In the face of destruction, I saw the spirit of our ingenuity, the strength we find in each other, our commitment to our children. And those things are a lot stronger than the challenges we face. For me, teaching has always been more than a job. It's a calling. It's who I am. So after we won the election in 2008, no one really expected me to keep teaching. But I couldn't walk away. I couldn't just live Joe's life. It was a juggling act for sure. And like any teacher, there have been times when I've been, just really exhausted from being in the classroom. But I think most of us never really leave the classroom behind. Cooking dinner, buying groceries, watching the latest TV show, there's always a part of you thinking about them. I know for me, this morning, going over my speech, my phone, ding, ding. I mean, it was my students. Hey, Dr. B, I'm sick, or hey, I am having trouble with this thesis statement, or hey, my family's going through a tough time right now. I don't know that I can come back to school. So what do? I don't just leave these things unanswered. I'm on my text saying, come back to school, you'll get through this, I'll help you. I mean, you all know this, you're educators. Everywhere you go, in everything you do, you carry your students with you. Still, watching your students grow, seeing them put your lessons to use, that spark in their eyes when idea falls into place. Those are the moments that make the learning and work and long hours and the money spent all worth it. Those are the moments when I realize I get so much more from my students than I will ever be able to give to them. A few years ago, I had to tell my class that I would miss the next session for personal reasons. Now, my students have a lot of shining qualities, but boundaries are not one of them. So they immediately began shouting, Dr. B, where are you going? Well, my sister was having a stem cell transplant, the first of her cancer treatments, and she would be isolated in a hospital room for over 6 weeks. I tried to explain that to my students with as much composure as I could muster, but the words caught in my throat. So I turned around and I faced the whiteboard, hoping to, hold back my emotions. And when I turned back around, the entire class was standing, and they lined up to give me a hug, one by one. One of the things that I've learned most from my students is that there are times when we need to lean on the people around us and hope that we can carry the weight of our lives together. Sooner or later, we will all stumble. Sooner or later, we will all suffer heartbreaks, some unimaginable, some that we think we can't survive. I recently went to hear David Brooks, a political writer and thinker, speak about character. He wrote, "Life is much bigger than we think. Cause and effect intertwined in a vast moral structure that keeps us pushing to do better, become better, even when we dwell in the most painful, confused darkness." I know that darkness. For over a year, I watched my brave, funny, bright young son fight brain cancer. Chemotherapy, operation after operation, weight loss. But I never gave up hope. As a mother, you can't. I had to be strong for my children and my husband, but most of all, for my son, Beau. I had to be strong for him because in the middle of it all, he was being strong for all of us. So I kept going. I lived a double life, teaching classes and continuing my duties as second lady. Almost no one knew what we were going through. Every day, I put one foot in front of the other. I recalled one poet's assertion that what matters most in life is how well you walk through the fire. We often don't know what's behind someone's smile or how much they need our grace, our strength. We lead by what we do, not by what we say. We give our hearts in little ways. The words we choose, the conscious decisions we make to be present, the small acts of kindness. When we think about the challenges we face in this nation, the times we have failed to meet our students where they are, the families who felt lost in the system, the zip codes where college seems beyond reach. These are not challenges one person or one organization will ever be able to fix. We need diligent people like you working your hearts out every day. We must all play a part, but we can't do it alone. You have got to work in community. Lean on each other when we feel weak. Be vulnerable with each other. Be a pillar for someone else. When my grandmother died, she didn't leave behind a big estate, but what I inherited from her, what I still have to this day, is that brass bell that she used to let me ring. And when I think about that bell, I think about the way her legacy, that love of learning, of education, has rung out into the world like waves of sound. I think of every student she touched and wonder what amazing things they grew up to do. I think of the children who learned kindness and courage at her feet, and the adults they became. Perhaps they're public servants working to make our communities a little stronger, a little fairer. Maybe they're doctors saving lives, or architects building our cities, or scientists working to solve global challenges. And of course, there's at least one teacher. One of my favorite writers is the 13th century poet Rumi. And there's a verse of his that I think a lot about, and it goes, "Let the beauty of what you love be what you do." We've all taken, everybody here has all taken a different path to get here. But we've gathered to do the same thing, shape the hearts and minds of the next generation, strengthen our schools, make a world that is worthy of our children. And because of your work, because of your support for organizations like Strive Together, we're a little bit closer today. Right now, someone out there is a better thinker because of you. Someone can read or write or calculate or bring home a paycheck for a family because of you. Someone is standing a little taller because you helped a teacher give him the confidence he needed. Someone is working a little harder because you created a program where she was pushed to try. Someone is kinder because you showed him what that meant. Someone is braver because you gave her that courage. They are all out there right now, hoping and dreaming and loving and building the world we need, because you gave them a life raft, a lantern in the darkness, a key to unlock their potential, because you helped them get an education. So I want to end by saying thank you to everyone who plays a part of this incredible community. Thank you for your passion, for your commitment, for letting the beauty of what you love be what you do every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Biden. Wow. I hope you're all as inspired as I am as we bring this convening to a close. Dr. Biden is inspiring on so many levels. But for me personally, I'm sure you all heard this. She said it multiple times. Her second job was second lady. Her first job has always been educator. Her passion for her students, obviously, given how she is in so many different directions as a woman leader. She said that, pulled in many, many directions as a mother, second lady, keeping Joe Biden in line, which cannot be an easy job, but I think we can all, especially us lady leaders out there who inspire me so much. I was so fortunate to be with many of you last night. We all, regardless of whether we're lady leaders or the men in this room as well, have so many roles we play in community, and I just hope that you'll take her words and her inspiration with you as you go back to your communities. I also need to just personally congratulate Becky Hoffman, who is an inspiring lady leader. I literally would not be in this role had it not been for Becky Hoffman and Danae Davis, both members of the CEO Search Committee, who helped to get me in this role. Thank you. And of course, congratulations to Lisa as well for another inspiring female doing incredible work on behalf of the children and families in Chicago and together with the Thrive Partnership in Chicago. Congratulations to those winners. And I want to thank each and every one of you, many of you who have helped put this on with your content. I've heard from so many people that this is the best yet. I feel like I hear that often, but I don't know, this year took it to a different level. And that is thanks to all of you and the content that you presented, the workshops that you designed, Summit Education Initiative, taking us through that simulation with 500 people in this room. I don't know how you did that. You pulled it off. You are masters at this. I want you to keep doing the work you're doing in Akron, but you could take that show on the road and do it all over the country. But all of this, and you all know this, is very much curated by the Strive Together team. And I'm going to ask the Strive Together team to stand up. I know you're out there. I can't see anything either. See you in the back. You are amazing. You have worked so incredibly hard. Everyone in this room knows that. This goes on for months and months, and then it happens, and then it's over, and we're all like, what just happened? It's a very bittersweet day, but I have to recognize 3 people especially, and that is Eleni Towner, Paige Umberger, Colleen Molesky. This would not have happened in this way. You 3 and our incredible event team at Accent, you guys have just exceeded everyone's expectations, the biggest and best yet. We didn't know what to do when we started to hit that 500 number, and it just couldn't be more incredible. And I expect to see even more next year in DC. I also need to say a special thank you again to our sponsors, the Boeing Corporation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Ballmer Group and Nellie Mae Education Foundation. We wouldn't have been here without you, and really, really appreciate your support of this year's event. So the past few days, you've heard that in order for us to go far, we have to. Yes, all right, we're getting good at that. And you've heard stories that exemplify this, that the support we need for our national movement in multiple communities throughout this network in order to ensure that every child, regardless of zip code, income, or race, has what they need to succeed. We know this work is not easy, and we know that there is no silver bullet solution. But as we've heard from one another, our vision for every child succeeding is possible when all of the systems work together. This means not just education, but healthcare, housing, justice, public safety, transportation, and more must unite in pursuit of equity for every child. We've made some incredible progress throughout 2018 and before that, including 10 communities hitting that proof point milestone. And that took a lot of work, and we're tired. And we, sometimes feel like, is it possible to go farther? But we know it is, and we're nowhere near the end of this journey together. Transforming systems in 24 communities is going to take more work, harder work, and innovative strategies and unyielding dedication. Accomplishing the goal of our strategic plan between now and 2023 will require investments of time, resources, and money into our 7 critical capacities. I know you're up to this challenge, as you've been up to every challenge that's been put in front of you. So let me ask you, how are you feeling? Are you feeling ready? Are you feeling as fired up and as motivated as I am to take on this challenge to get to 24 by 2023? Are you? All right. Okay, I'm feeling good about that. I know you guys are getting ready to go, but I'm feeling good about that. So I have to ask one more thing of you. You know we work hard every single year to make this the best convening. And we work hard to keep improving. And although I've heard from many of you that we've done really well this year, I know there are some improvements that could be made. So you should also, in fact, I know that you do. You all already have an email in your inbox asking you to complete a survey. You can also do this on your Crowd Compass app. So please give us that feedback. You saw many of the improvements that you asked for last year were made this year. We take this feedback seriously. We want this to be a good use of your time and your investment to bring teams, bigger teams than I've ever seen before at this convening. We know what this took to kind of take you away from your community for a few days. So we want to hear from you. We need that feedback. And so as you get on your airplanes or your trains or you're in your cars to go back to your communities and get ready for what will be a weekend, if you're like me, I'll be spending it on the soccer field. Probably some of you soccer moms out there will as well. But you get prepared to get back to your work on Monday and dive headfirst into your meetings and your emails and your myriad other tasks, which I know you'll all be doing. I ask that you identify one individual action commitment that fully embody our rallying cry for this year. Go far, go together. Who are you going to call out there across the network to help you through whatever challenge you're facing? Figure out who they are. You know it's going to require us to go far, to go together. And get ready for another year ahead. We are so excited to see you in 2019 in Washington, D.C., and on behalf of the Strive Together team and board of directors, I want to give a sincere thank you to you again for joining us. Now, before you leave, just as we started, we are so incredibly, incredibly privileged to be able to be sent off with another incredible spoken word by Christian Paige. So Christian.
Good afternoon, Strive Together. I have to tell you all that this is a really special moment for me. The poem I'm about to perform, when they asked me to close the ceremony, there was a person who came up in my mind. And she asked me a question at the end of me graduating from the Act 6 program, and she asked us as a whole. She asked the question, what do you look like in the eyes of your enemy? And it's been the guiding question that has held me in the work this entire time. And there's some tricky people in the room, right, who I had not seen this woman in years. And when I came in, she was sitting next to me at the table. And we've talked about these powerful women all throughout the day, but I have to say the name Pat Thompson in this space, and her sister Lena Thompson, who are the heroes that I've aspired to be for a long time. There's a poet who says, I wear my city like a good sweater to a job interview, and I wear mine on my chest in the same way, and that moment has been inspired by these sisters, Pat and Lena Thompson. And so I'm going to pose the same question to you all. The title of this poem is, What Do You Look Like in the Eyes of Your Enemy? A wise woman once asked me, what do you look like in the eyes of your enemy? My grandmother used to read me that we don't battle against flesh and blood, but against principalities in high places. A wise woman once said that they will never forget how you made them feel. And since then, I've wondered what oppression feels like when it sees me. I wonder if it trembles when I make connections with the like-minded. I wonder what happens to poverty's point of view when there's a wealth of knowledge in the young minds that I teach. What access tastes like in the mouth of the exclusive. This is not just a conversation about raising funds, but better, fundamentally changing how we mentally cultivate community, beautifully choosing to scoff in the face of division while building bridges for unity. See, you and me, we have to decide to torment the things that torment our children, to write an eviction notice for homelessness, to tell it that you can't stay here anymore, to tell poverty it's time to pay what you owe our families, to dethrone white supremacy, to hang it upside down by its bootstraps and shake the change out of its pockets until there's change in the pockets of the communities that it's robbed of its resources. What do you look like in the eyes of your enemy? We should look like an interruption, like an unsolvable equation of equity, like a persistent peoples pressing powerfully into each other until oppression can't tell us apart. We should look unshakable, like a fortress surrounding the well-being of our babies. Our babies should feel like rock stars, taking risks beyond the deficits prescribed to them, stage diving into the hands of communities, waiting to watch them crowd surf into their wildest dreams. We should feel like a megaphone, amplifying the voices that have been forced into a whisper, giving power to the people who stand most affected. We should look like a strong community. We should understand the principles, the broken ideologies and poorly written policies that chronically create disproportionality with no form of apologies. And my apologies if this is starting to feel like more than what you signed up for, but there's a door over there if you're starting to feel scared because there's too much at stake for us to fake like we are not fighting against more than just misfortune. We have work to do. But this is up to you. The only gaps that truly exist are the ones that we allow to persist when we wish instead of move, dream instead of create. Tomorrow is too late. Our children cannot wait another year to be loved and supported from cradle to career. And I hope that our enemy sees us and knows that it has no choice but to concede. I hope it sees a collective that will stop at nothing until we have created a community that speaks of oppression, of racism, of poverty, of gaps, not as issues that we face, but as parables of what can be conquered by collective impact. A wise woman once asked me, what do you look like in the eyes of your enemy? And I hope that our answer is ready. Thank you.